Good morning. I'm Jack Barnes.
And I'm his wife, Andrea.
And we're really pleased to have this opportunity to be back in our church, even under the circumstances of having it limited to 10. It's frustrating, and we certainly missed that opportunity to get up and greet all of you out there, and hopefully that opportunity will come sooner than later. We were asked to speak a little bit about what we are doing during this sequestering. And when I heard that initially, I thought, the best one to ask would be our therapy dog, Toby, who, if he was asked, would say, "No, not another walk. I'm not going for another walk. You go ahead without me." As part of what we were doing when everything first began, I guess like a lot of you, we made sure we packed in a year's supply of toilet paper. And then we felt we were okay. But I will say that shopping certainly has changed as one of the things we first faced when it came to the sequestering. And Andrea, maybe you can address that a little bit.
Well, before I address that, I just want to mention about, I'm trying to think, I'm having a senior moment here. What was I going to mention about? I'm sorry about that.
No, you don't have to be sorry about that. You're going to talk about your shopping at Walmart and what you had to do when you went to Walmart, because
Yes.
she did all the shopping.
And normally when we did shopping, we would do maybe $30 or $40 worth, and it would take maybe 30 minutes to 40 minutes. And when I went to do the first one, I was there 3.5 hours, and I thought I was in the gym for that whole time, because by taking my cart and putting $200 and some worth in it, and then pushing that cart all through Walmart, it was something I did not expect, and I didn't realize how unfit I was at the time. So that was a big revelation. But before that, what I was trying to say was, with Toby, our dog, when Jack was talking about the toilet paper, that was the first thing that everybody was thinking about. I wasn't thinking about toilet paper. I was thinking about what kind of food I was going to get for my dog, because that was the most important thing in my life, was feeding my dog. Jack wanted the toilet paper, so I just wanted to make that clear.
That was made very clear, and we now have a 6-month supply of dog food for Toby. Part of that ordered online. That was one of the changes we did see. I'm sure, like a lot of you, we did more online ordering, and I can see this lasting even when the virus is, let's say, conquered or put under control. It's great to suddenly have stuff delivered to your doorstep, or you go out to a store and you call them on the phone and they say, "We're here," and they come out, put it in your car, and you're gone. We did lose all of that. We did other things. Some things, you have to think about what's really happening. We paid forward our pledge, like a lot of you, to the church, because even though we're home, the church has expenses that continue, and I'm sure that they appreciate a lot of what you have done for those of you who've been able to pay in advance. We made it a point also to watch the online church services. Having a former show on the internet, I can appreciate what it takes to video the services. It looks so easy when you all see it, but it's difficult, and they had a learning curve, and they really have improved, and hopefully everyone will be able to tune in Sunday and watch the services, and you can even see it if you can't make it on Sunday. I know some of you have really busy schedules when you're at home. I also thought, when I was watching Pastor Dale and Pastor Bob, how difficult it must be for them. When you think about it, everything they've been trained to do, whether it be visitation, church services, they're suddenly told they're not able to do it. That has to be extremely difficult for a pastor, and we need to keep them in our prayers with everyone else. Part of what we did were what we called, you had to get out. Like a lot of you get cabin fever. You got to get out of this house once you're done doing all the chores that need to be done in the home. And so we had what we called car picnics. So we would then get in the car, we go up to Arby's, and we get a Reuben, we get mint chocolate chip shakes, which were only limited time, and then we would take them to, where can you go? Well, one place was drive down to Ocean City past Sunset Grill, which you all know. There's a parking lot at the end that overlooks the inlet, and we'd have a half-hour picnic there along with the other 5 or 6 cars that thought that was a good idea as well. And when it comes to going out for that picnic, you had a sort of a really interesting life event that had never happened to you before.
You know, it's interesting because Jack and I had a little bit different experience. Jack's sister unexpectedly passed away the first part of February, and she lived in Syracuse. And it was a very difficult time for us. And she lived by herself. She had a lot of friends. But because she died within 2 weeks of a melanoma that got out of control, we went up there as soon as we heard about it. And that took up a lot of our situation in this quarantine time. But during that time, there was an Arby's down the street from where she lived. And so we went to Arby's for lunch one day. And there was this picture of a green milkshake. My father was a milkman, and we went to a little store that the dairy had, and I would always order a banana split. I have never in my life had a milkshake or a smoothie. Well, this green mint shake looks so good. I said to Jack, why don't we try that? Thank God that they are only having it for another couple of days, because I think Jack and I would gain a couple more pounds because we have been there so many times eating our milkshake. So that was something that came out of going to Syracuse. And then when we found out that we had to come back because of the borders between the states being limited by the state police, we left Syracuse early and then started what is now what we know as the quarantine period. I was a former high school English teacher, and I just wrote a couple of notes here because there was things like social distancing, shelter in place, and then a new phrase came the other day. It was called quarantine fatigue. I'm sure the woman could relate to my next statement, because when a husband retires, it becomes a wife's full-time job. And consequently, I have never felt a quarantine fatigue because we were either cooking, cleaning, fixing stuff around the house, doing things that we normally would do as a retired couple. But then adding Jack for another 24/7 couple of hours, now going out with his buddies and everything, my life became even more filled with what we had to do as a couple together. So all of these new words are something new for what I have experienced. And I haven't felt the quarantine fatigue yet. I'm not sure if Jack has, perhaps he has, but that was our experience with my shake in Syracuse.
And it was the first shake you ever had in your whole life.
That's right. After 70-some years, that was my first shake.
It's amazing the events that come about. You know, there were also some, I think, nice things that came about, strange as that is to say. It was nice to see parents walking down the street with their children. People were out biking. People were walking, keeping their social distance, but it reminded me of the neighborhoods in the 50s. People were out. They didn't have that crunch necessarily. They were forced, at least initially, to, in a sense, do nothing unless you were able to work from home. Another dynamic that I have seen. My daughter-in-law is a vice principal in Pittsburgh, and my neighbors are down the street are also teachers. Working from home on computers sounded easy, but as my daughter-in-law said, one of my first problems was with some of the older teachers who weren't quite tech savvy, and we had to get that up to speed. The kids were ahead of them as far as technology. My grandson in Ocean View is a freshman at University of Delaware, and I kind of got a kick out of the instructions that came through that your classes will begin at 9, no pajamas. And they want to make sure these kids got their head in the game a little bit. It also was somewhat of a problem in that, from what my neighbors told me down the street, you have all these kids, let's say they're on Zoom or whatever, all their pictures, some of them will act up and it's very difficult to discipline them. So a lot of teachers, they have their own challenges, and it's not as easy as it sounds just to sit home and get on the computer and say, okay, you're teaching. It is difficult. Another group we need to keep keep in our prayers as well.
I want to mention about Michael. Jack mentioned about our grandson. This was an interesting situation that I experienced because our grandson is 20 and he's one of the major lifeguards in the Ocean City area during the summer. And to keep in shape, he goes to the gym all the time. And we got a call one afternoon saying that Michael was on his way to the hospital because one of the weights fell on his eye. And of course, as a grandmother, I'm there like, I'm on my way. Well, we found out that I couldn't be on my way because the hospitals don't allow anybody in. And even when Michael and his father went there, they would not allow him to come in because it wasn't related to the virus, and they told him he had to go to an urgent care, which he did. And thank God we have these urgent cares because they were the ones that handled the auxiliary situations that happened in relation to the virus. So that was quite disconcerting. I didn't expect something like that when you really want to be with your family, especially your grandchildren. But everything worked out okay. His eye is fine. He had stitches and everything's worked out okay. But that was just really a little bit earth-shaking for me.
I guess, it is certainly challenging, and everybody has their own lens and their own viewpoint of what's happening. It's one thing for us to look at it, retirees, and a lot of you retirees out there, sometimes we feel our life is half doctors and half restaurants. You have other people that are working that are suddenly find they don't have a paycheck. Others that live alone and they don't have anybody to, bounce ideas off of or take them someplace if something happens. There's so many people that need to be kept in our prayers. I think I heard someone say we either can look at this virus as a crisis or a challenge. If you look at it as a crisis, you look at the worst case scenario and you assume that's going to be the best case scenario. You just can't handle anything. If you look at it as a challenge, you have the attitude that we are going to get through this. We look at the science, we keep people in our prayers, we do the right things, and we decide we will get through this. And that's how our family has chosen to address this. We will get through it. In the Bible, as serious as this is, as awful as this virus is, there's a chapter, it's Mark 9, verse 23. Everything is possible for those who believe. And in Mark 10, chapter 27, Jesus looked at them, with man, this is impossible, but not with God. With God, all things are possible. We really pray for everyone and ask your prayers in this difficult time. And in the end, I'll just say Godspeed and stay safe.